Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Hollis, and thank you for joining us today. We have an exciting episode coming up today. Our guest is Dr. Dennis Trolle. He co-founded Water iTech and Water Web Tools as spin-out companies of Aarhus University in Denmark, where he, until 2023, held a position as a full-time professor and led a research lab specializing in hydrological and water quality monitoring. Dr. Trolle has also led numerous consultancy projects, including the development of water quality models that are now used by Danish EPA. Thank you so much for joining us today. We would just like to start off first by talking about your work in managing and protecting surface waters from flooding, water quality, and drought challenges. So, Dennis, can you just talk a little bit more about this?
Certainly. Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure being part of this, Andrew. Thank you for that. Yes, I've been working for the better part of 15 years with the water quality, flooding, and drought aspects, mainly from a research perspective, and based at Aarhus University in Denmark. And we have been developing, models that can help us quantify how does climate impact water quality or drought and flood issues. And we also develop models that can help us understand, can we do something about these challenges? Can we manage the landscape somewhat differently to alleviate some of the expected impacts? So we've been running projects all over the world, Africa, Asia, all over Europe, and also some in the US, where we try to put numbers on impacts of climate change or impacts on how we manage the landscape, how we cultivate the landscape and have food production. How does that impact water quality and flooding and drought issues?
Yeah.
And then you can see that some of the models that we have developed in research they're really good. They provide lots of valuable information, but they are also very difficult to run if you're not a nerd and an expert. So that was kind of one of the key motivations for creating these spin-out companies. We really want to make these good models more accessible for you can say for society and for making decisions. So we've been running these companies for about 4 years now, and since January this year, full time.
Yeah. I mean, that's very impressive. Just a comment on top of that. I think that in this climate, given the dwindling freshwater resources, as well as the changing climate due to climate change, that, I think it's more important than ever that these tools be accessible to society to better plan utilization of these resources.
Exactly, yeah.
So speaking a little bit on that, how important is hydrological and water quality forecasting overall within the sector?
Well, you say right now, the practical use of forecasting is actually still in the early stages, even though the benefits are quite well documented and also very substantial. If we look towards Europe, for example, Germany, it's a little bit more widespread use of forecasting technology within the water utility sector, where it's a little bit less used, at least so far in the US. There are a few, some of the very large utilities in the US, for example, New York, they developed their own forecasting system that simulates the hydrology of some of the reservoirs that supplies New York. But that system is proprietary, and you cannot simply take that and transfer that to another and maybe smaller utility in the US. So that's exactly what we have built. We've built some software that you can transfer to any type of location in the US or in the world, basically. So we're still in the early stages, but the benefits are well documented and substantial. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very impressive. So, I mean, overall, why do you think it is important to have this data at your fingertips?
Well, you say for many parts of the world, weather's changing rapidly and also becoming more extreme. And that there's really no room for a delay between, you say, when we produce a forecast so that ends up with a person who can make a decision in order for that decision to make sense and make value. So if you need to protect an asset or protect yourself or livestock, you need to get that data out as soon as possible to be able to take action, basically. And you can say some of the forecasts we run 4 times per day, and we send out the forecasts without delay to our users through our web platform or through a phone app.
Yeah. So, I mean, do the tools you offer also help with overall safety of all those that are involved in the process throughout the supply chain?
Yes, you can say it can help safeguard important assets and people and livestock. If you know there's a flooding event coming up, let's say 2 or 3 days from now or hours from now, then you'll be able to take action and you can get people and livestock out of harm's way. And we know as little as just 1 hour lead time in the forecast will enable you to save about 10% of the damages that occurs during a flooding event. So it's quite substantial amounts that you can safeguard having this data at your fingertips.
Yeah. So, I mean, how important is overall system surveillance in your mind?
Well, and it is, you say, very important. And what we do is actually we fuse a system surveillance. So that could be real-time data collected through sensors. We feed that into our modeling platform. So we have a combination between models that produce forecasts and real-time system surveillance data that feeds into the forecast. So we can produce even more reliable model forecasts if we have real-time data coming into the system. So it is very important to enable us to make reliable forecasts without huge uncertainty, so you can make a decision that makes sense and has value.
So, I mean, you mentioned a little bit about how overall the municipalities could benefit for water web tools and water iTech. Is there any other use cases, if you will, that you can kind of see overall positive impacts that were perhaps not mentioned prior?
You can say, like, we have our own pilot case in Texas, which is based on the Richland Chambers Reservoir, which is owned by the Tarrant Regional Water District and supplies Fort Worth and parts of Dallas. But there's another, like, I think, really well documented test case based in California, which is Lake Mendocino. So that's you can say, multi-purpose reservoir. So it's used for drinking water supply, hydropower, and also irrigation. And there's been quite a detailed cost-benefit analysis for this single reservoir that looked at the benefits not only on, you can say, water supply, but also on hydropower, operation costs, downstream fisheries, the value in irrigation. If we add all the benefits together, the value of having forecasts data available to make decisions and optimize operations was, I remember, it was about $9 million per year for that single reservoir.
Wow, that's very impressive. And then, so what can businesses overall do to help conserve and ensure stable fresh water supply?
Well, I'd like to say we can help people understand the bigger picture. So some of the model tools that we apply and develop is quite holistic and integrated. So what you do on a landscape impacts the water quality within that landscape. What you do upstream impacts downstream. And the modeling tools we use integrates most of the elements in a landscape. So it's also a nice tool that can help you basically understand what's going on within a landscape, how are water resources within a landscape connected, and if you do something upstream, how will that impact downstream? So it can also be used as a tool to kind of communicate and make plans for how do we best protect the water resource within a large scale.
Yep, and I think that is very fair. Well, I just wanted to, thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Trolle. We appreciate your time. And, for our viewers, you can find Dennis on LinkedIn and follow his company, Water iTech and Water Web Tech, on social media as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Andrew. It was a pleasure.